Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
What attacked me? This occurred approximately 3 years ago, and it still haunts me on a regular basis to this day. I thought perhaps I was alone in this encounter, but recently saw a story about black-eyed kids while surfing the web and thought that this may have been a similar experience. My encounter happened in late June in the middle of the night shortly after I had fallen asleep. I had spent the day earlier gardening and had sprayed around the house to control mosquitoes that day, which I thought might have caused me to hallucinate this experience. I also lived alone at the time. Anyway, I went to bed and at some point was woken up by the sound of children giggling and playing outside my house in the middle of the night. I lived in a one-story rancher and could hear them playing and tapping on the windows in the front of the house. I peeked out the blinds to see these kids, and they appeared to be 3 kids under the age of 10. I don't remember what the boy was wearing, but the girls were in black dresses like they had come from some event. They had ear-length jet black hair with bangs. I was in my pajamas so decided to ignore them and pretend they were not there, hoping they would realize they are in the wrong place and go away. Then they started knocking on the door, persistently. I figured they must have seen me and were not going to go away, so I answered the door. The 3 kids were there and an adult facing away on the sidewalk. They insisted that they lived at my house and that they needed to come in. I told them that they had the wrong house. Then they asked if I knew some person and said they were coming to meet him, and again insisted that they come in. Again I replied that they must be confused, that it was just me here and I don't know them and they don't belong in my house. I then shut the door. Again there was a knock. I opened it and this time it was the adult standing in front of the kids. At this point I must have noticed the eyes because I become extremely terrified. There were also a few additional family members now gathered on the sidewalk to my house. Again he said that they lived there and were meeting someone else, and insisted that I let them in because they had traveled a long way. At this point something clicked in my brain, and I stared back at the man and very firmly told him I knew who he was, and that he did not belong here and went to shut the door. At the instant that I said this man showed his true form, which was that of some sort of demon or beast. Here it screamed or roared in my face, grabbed me by the neck and pinned me up against the wall, enough to knock the wind out of me. I wish I could give a better description of what it looked like, but the second I saw it change, I closed my eyes and began to pray as hard as I could, and focus only on the praying and block out this thing that had pinned me against the wall. It was the only thing I could do, because I was sure it was going to kill me at that moment. Not sure what happened next, but I woke up in the morning in my bed. However, my neck was stiff like I had whiplash for days, and my front door was ajar. Every single night after this incident I could not go to bed without putting a chair with a 20-pound weight on it in front of the door. I also had to push the recliner in front of the patio door. Luckily, I moved from that place earlier this year. I have not had an encounter since this experience. The vivid experience was a one-time event. Prior to this I had classic reoccurring sleep paralysis with feelings of evil spirits being in the room and pressing on my chest, but never anything like what was at my door. After this encounter thought I haven't had nightmares or sleep paralysis like I had had in the past. I have a feeling that maybe they had been scoping me out before actually visiting and making a move, but were confronted and rejected, and so have not come back. MD.
Threatened and scared by 2 black-eyed kids, BEK. This happened to me a few months ago. I'm a freshman in college here in South Carolina. When my spring break started, instead of going some crazy beach during the virus scare, I spent my week off at home. Because winter ended so early, I found myself mowing lawns about a month earlier than usual. I drove to an elderly woman's house to mow. I had mowed for her for 4 years now. I used to live down the street from her, but I had since moved away. I kept the job because mowing is great money for little work. She had been diagnosed with cancer and has not been doing well, in and out of the hospital, so I knew how to let myself in the garage through the back to open the garage door. I did a once-over around the outside of the house, picking up sticks and lifting downspouts. I even threw a Nerf football back into the neighbor's yard. I went back into the front yard. It was just a beautiful day outside. I had lived here for my whole childhood, so I stood out in the driveway, taking it all in. There was a couple in their backyard and a few people walking, and everything else was so peaceful and quiet. Because of the virus, very few people were out and about. A perfect afternoon. I didn't think anything like this would happen. I saw my old next-door neighbors outside, and being the socially awkward person that I am, I wanted to avoid conversation. I put my face mask on and then started the mower, popped my headphones in and pushed it into the backyard. It was a big backyard, with 3 trees, 2 gardens, and an oddly shaped bench that was extremely hard to maneuver around. I was at least used to these things, having dealt with them for years, and I was just getting into my groove when I saw a kid out of the corner of my eye. He was just standing in the backyard. I don't know how long he had been there, or how he had even made his way without me seeing him. I jumped, as I was not used to ever being disturbed while mowed. I pulled my headphones out, and he just looks at me from across the yard. He looked pretty normal from where I was standing. It seemed a little hot to be wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, but I didn't think anything of it. He was a male, looked to be about 13 years old, but I'm horrible with guessing ages. I looked at him for a couple seconds before I realized he isn't going to say anything this far away, so I reluctantly turned off the mower. My senses were already working overtime, besides the ringing in my ears, when the kid asks, "Can you help us?" Us? I think to myself. There's more than one. I get the butterflies in my stomach because my keys, my wallet, and my cell phone were left out in the garage. I wanted to reduce my pocket weight. I hurried to the front and there was a second boy there, younger than the first by a few years. He didn't move his feet and just kept his eyes on me. I honestly didn't care about how they were standing or looking. I made a beeline for my valuables and I made sure nothing was taken. I turned around with everything sorted out in my pockets and I almost jumped again. They had closed in on me and were looking up at me. That's when I saw that they had those damn black eyes. I felt so small, so mortal. Those eyes. That's all it took for me to realize I wasn't as in charge as I thought I was. "Can you help us?" The older boy asks. "We're thirsty, and our dad wants to know where we are." My head is just spinning. I've read the stories before. I know what they're up to. But I can't hide. It isn't my house. There's a water fountain just across the street. I already know what they're going to say. "Just please let us inside, we've been outside all day and we are very thirsty. You need to let us in." I said, "No." I was trying so hard not to look at them in the eyes. I knew I shouldn't, but I wanted to learn more. I wanted to describe them, so I just caught a glimpse of the little ones. Pitch black, unblinking. I immediately thought I could hear his voice in my head, even though I had never heard it. It was almost as if I was arguing with myself. I was fighting the voice as I was slowly taking steps back in the garage. The kids didn't move forward, they didn't say anything else. They just stared, and I kept walking, a foot at a time. Finally, I was close enough to hit the button to close the garage door. I could still see their feet, unmoving as the door slowly closed down completely, forcing me into darkness. For about 3 seconds I was relieved that I escaped. Then I realized I'm trapped. I can't get into the main part of the lady's house, and I can't go back out the front. The only option is to leave through the back door that is always left unlocked, the one I came in through. I quickly check for what I came with, when I realize that my keys, which I clearly remember stuffing into my pocket earlier, are now in the palm of my hand. It dawns on me that I can't even remember it, but I almost gave them my keys. This is too much for me to handle, and the darkness of the garage isn't helping, so I open the door, and the sunlight washes over me. I felt so happy. It left me unprepared for what happened next. I closed the door and turned the corner to make my way to the front, and the oldest was alone, blocking my path. He screamed at me. I asked nicely, "Let us in?" I spun around and bolted into the backyard. I didn't look back to see if I was being chased. I ran past the tree, past the mower I had left out, and I knew that the little one would be ready to meet me around the corner. Sure enough, he was there, and this side yard was more narrow than the first. I put on a burst of speed, and I knocked the kid down. I was about to feel bad until he tried to bite my hand as I pushed him. The little creep tried to bite me. I ran for a few more strides, so close to my car parked on the street, when I stopped. There was no traffic. Nobody had called my name. There was no reason for me to stop. Except I did. The little boy was crying. I had never heard somebody cry like that. It was crystal clear, like it was coming from my headphones. I turned around and he was sitting up, sobbing. I wanted to walk back and help him, apologize. I wanted to open the garage and find a way in the house to let him use the phone. I wanted to do everything in my power to help him. Let us in. We need the house, he said through tears. Almost brainwashed a second time by an 8-year-old. I couldn't believe it. I shook it off one last time and ran into my car. I locked the doors and I didn't look back until I was onto a different street. I had hand sanitizer in the car and spread that crap all over myself. I didn't know if those 2 kids were infected or what. I called the lady's house to tell her I hadn't finished and I could be back tomorrow. Thankfully she must not have been home. At least she didn't answer. GH.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.